Hello, and welcome back to What We Pod in the Shadows, a What We Do in the Shadows podcast where we are currently watching the first season of What We Do in the Shadows. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
Just a reminder, folks, if you've been enjoying the show so far, it would be super cool if you could subscribe to the show and leave us a review if you haven't already.
So please, if you don't mind, pause the podcast and subscribe. And then if you could leave a review, that would be really awesome. And rate us. And we will read some of the reviews on the pod. So we have this one from Alu77. This is a fun listen if you love this show. The hosts are going over the sixth and final season. They dive into plot points and overarching themes and make predictions as to how everything will turn out. They get right to the point with minimal beginning chit-chat. Give it a try if you love What We Do in the Shadows. So that was from December before we started back with season 1. But we'd like to see some more reviews and we will read some if you write us some.
We would really love the feedback, and we would like it if, we're able to reach a wider audience by getting more reviews, and that could, push us out there so more people see us. This week, we're discussing the episode The Trial, which takes place right after the previous episode and explores the aftermath of the Baron getting burned by the sun. Dun, dun, dun.
They move the burnt Baron upstairs and accidentally break him in half while Guillermo has a panic attack outside in the bushes. So they are still kind of high from drinking off the people from the rave. They have a ceremony to bury the Baron in Laszlo's topiary garden, but don't remember how he died. So this must be the next evening. They pour some blood on his face to give him a last sip before putting him in the grave. And he's sort of facing away from them, but his eyes open and they don't notice. The Baron's familiar watches them from a second floor window. A bunch of ravens show up and Guillermo buries the Baron.
So they see the ravens and Andor's they signify bad luck, and then Colin Robinson pops up, which startles everyone, and he's like, I'm feeding off of your energy right now. They go back into the house because of all the ravens. There's this huge swarm at this point. We can hear the ravens from inside the house flying and calling and stuff. Guillermo says there's a woman at the door who wants to talk to them, and there's a floating vampire woman with white hair, played by Kristen Shaw. I'm presuming that she's still playing the guide here because she has a similar getup and everything. So I'm not sure that she is yet named as the guide. I think the credits actually list her as floating woman, but I think she's playing the same character. I didn't remember her being in the first season, though. She is pissed that the Vampiric Council sent them 500 ravens and they didn't answer, though Nandor points out they do have a phone. Nonetheless, she says that they're invited to the Vampiric Council, though the way she says it doesn't make it seem like an optional invitation. Nadja and Laszlo explain that the Vampiric Council meets to dish out justice for vampire-related crimes. Laszlo very nearly went before the council for making a baby into a vampire and then leaving it in the Bronx, which was a big no-no.
They arrive at the council and the vampire lady shows them the way. She floats and is either really fast or can teleport. They are shown into a room with 2 vampires at a table. Guillermo has to go to the vampire lounge. Nandor almost immediately spills the beans to these 2 vampires. The 2 vampires reveal they have been in prison for 90 years for defiling and turning a baby into a vampire. So I'm not sure who the lady was. Their names were Basilica and Garrett is Dave Bautista. So it basically sounds like Garrett got in trouble for the thing that Laszlo did, making the baby 90 years ago into a vampire.
Indeed. He's super pissed that he's stuck down there for something that he did not do.
The floating lady shows them into the council. So they thought those 2 guys, the 2 vampires, were the council, but they're just imprisoned. Guillermo arrives at the very sparse, familiar lounge. The council is all in white robes and veils, and they do a bit of a dance.
They are then greeted by Tilda, Darkly created by Tilda, I wrote, who's of course played by Tilda Swinton, and the accusations of their crimes are read to them by the three vampires from the What We Do in the Shadows movie, Viago, Vladislav, and Deacon. And then they introduce all of the Vampire Council. We have Evan, who's Evan Rachel Wood, Danny Trejo, Paul Rubens, and then Wesley Snipes, though he's there via Skype. And he keeps having trouble with Skype, and it's really glitchy, and it's several minutes behind. They also have a local vampire on the council, which turns out to be Colin Robinson. The council call out the Baron's familiar to stand as witness, and everyone's surprised that she can talk. She tells them that the Staten Island vamps let the Baron eat human food, which disgusts the council, and she says that earlier they had been plotting to kill the Baron, which Laszlo says was bullshit, that they were just floating the idea. Back in the familiar room, Guillermo and the other familiars talk, and Guillermo realizes that none of them have ever met a familiar who was made into a vampire. One of the familiars has been serving his vampire masters for 7 decades and still hasn't been turned.
So earlier when they were introducing the vampires, they kind of named like a couple of celebrities who had played vampires before, but refused to come, including Robert Pattinson, Kiefer Sutherland, Tom Cruise, and Brad Pitt. But I was thinking who else was a vampire? I guess I can't think of his name. The guy that plays Loki was a vampire with Tilda and something, right?
Yeah, yes.
I don't think they brought him up.
No.
The council admits they didn't even like the Baron, but they have rules about killing their own. Guillermo is brought in as a witness, but they think he is lunch. He says they discussed killing him, but did not do it. Guillermo confesses, but the council doesn't believe him. They didn't like the Baron, so consider killing Guillermo and letting the other 3 go. But Nandor stops them and confesses they killed the Baron. The council agrees they are guilty, and Tilda, the leader, says they must die the way the Baron did, by exposure to sunlight.
They ask for Colin Robinson's help, but he just says, "Fuck can I do?" The guy takes them back through the tunnels, and they try to escape, but are easily thwarted by vampire guards. Guillermo also attempts to make his way through the tunnels, and comes across another vampire guard. Guillermo pulls out his cross necklace, which causes the vampire to be flung backwards onto something pointy sticking out of the wall, which kills him. Guillermo freaks out and runs in the other direction, saying that it was an accident. Then Viago explains that the vampires are being sent to the bottom of the well to be burned alive. Guillermo runs off into the snow. The vampires talk about their regrets, and Laszlo admits to being Jack the Ripper. Nandor says he misses his horse and wishes he'd been kinder to him, and also to Laszlo and Nasha. The sun begins to hit them in the well, and they start screaming when a black umbrella begins to cover up the top of the well. Colin and Guillermo to the rescue. Colin says he bought the umbrella from a hardware store and then starts droning on about boring shit, and they ask him to stop, and he teases them about leaving. They free the vampires and put them in a cardboard box in bat form. Colin asks how long Guillermo's been with them, and Guillermo says 10 years. 2 of the crew members are still stuck at the bottom of the well. I'm not sure why they had to be at the bottom of the well, if they were just like down there filming it, or if they're there as like a distraction or what. I'm
kind of uncertain why the council did show up quickly. I'm not sure how they knew immediately that the Baron had been killed. It could be that his familiar turned them in, but it seemed as though they did zero investigation. They just brought really the 2 familiars as witnesses, which, I mean, they're going to be loyal to their particular vampire, but it was an accident. So, I mean, I feel like the Baron himself was at least as guilty as Guillermo and the 3 Staten Island vampires, because he's the one that wanted to go out on the town and eat the human food and stuff like that. So,
Right.
Like, they kind of felt like they had to do what he wanted because he's a leader, and he was just being all goofy, and that's why he, like, fell down the stairs and everything. So I feel like they, like, to just sentence them to death just based on that little bit of information, I don't think was fair. I do like that they were just going to have them be killed in the same manner, but they didn't even examine, like, the Baron's body, because like his eyes did flutter open, and he's really old and stuff. So didn't they at one point call him like someone say he was like unkillable or something like that.
Yeah, like unkillable or like he was undying or something like that.
So I feel like they should have at least like did more of an investigation and actually examined the body. Like, is it dead?
Yeah.
And if it's not dead, I mean, I don't know. Like, they have the camera crew there too. Like, they could have rewatched the footage and seen that, like, all of it was led by the Baron.
Absolutely. They literally have video evidence.
And it would have shown his eyes fluttering.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I thought it was very cool that this is just the first season of the show and they got that vampire council full of people who've all famously played vampires. That kicked ass. Kind of the trial and then them being like burnt by the sun was giving me like Interview with the Vampire flashbacks, like what happened to Claudia.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that like the whole time I was watching the Interview with the Vampire movie.
Yeah, the council was really neat. I'm not sure. I was kind of wondering with them because I mean, Taika is I feel like more famous now, but back then him getting all of them to because I'm not sure if he's worked with all those people, but to come and be part of the council. I was just wondering if like I'm sure it's like look upable, but like did maybe some of the episodes air and then there was kind of a break before and they hadn't really filmed the rest of it and then people really liked the show and then were interested in it because I'm just if being season 1 and getting them all in there yeah it was like pretty huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think since this was 2019, it would have been like post Thor Ragnarok. So a lot of people probably, because that's where I originally had heard of Taika, was because he directed Thor Ragnarok. So maybe a lot of people after seeing that had wanted to on the show, introduced to him from there, and were like, this could be neat.
I guess they could be fans of the original movie too.
Yeah, that too.
You don't always see vampires portrayed like in a comedic way.
Yeah.
Like usually it's pretty serious and I don't know.
Yeah, this is like mostly like campy, goofy fun. And they're just kind of all ding dongs. So yeah, thank you again for listening. I think this is where we're going to end the show. Just again, a reminder to rate the show, leave a review, subscribe if you haven't already. And we do have another podcast which has quite a few more episodes, Mojo Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, where we discuss episodes of the Powerpuff Girls and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Right now we are currently talking about part 3 of JoJo Stardust Crusaders. So if you've enjoyed hearing us talk about vampires on here, maybe you'd enjoy hearing us talk about some vampires on there.
I guess we didn't really say what our predictions were for coming up. I know I'm like interrupting usually our end part, but the next episode is episode 8, Citizenship, if you want to watch before the next episode comes out. And then obviously they got away from the council, but for how long? Because they know where they live.
Yeah.
And I think the stuff with Gregor is over, but she still had made the vampire Jenna. So I'm assuming we will get back to that at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I remember what citizenship was about.
I think I remember that one.
And then obviously, like I said a couple of times, when they poured blood on the Baron before they buried him, that his red eyes fluttered open. So I don't think he's dead, and that should get them out of trouble, hopefully, eventually, with the council. But they kind of also didn't seem like they knew where the council was at.
Yeah, maybe they've just never been summoned before, or they don't care enough about vampire politics.
I mean, she did kind of like slap a thing on the elevator, like where it was located. So I guess only if you have an appointment do they like really let people know where it's at in the building. But yeah. Sorry, I'm like slapping this on at the end, but this stuff just occurred to me.
Tune in next week when we do talk about citizenship, the episode Citizenship. But until next time, remember, you're dead and out of this world. Goodbye.
Goodbye.